It's time to get Louis ViTen back in the shop. It's got some damage from Ultimate Adventure, and I gotta have it ready for the Sema Show in a week, so we gotta get off this dirt road and back into the Dirthead Shed. Come on out. I might have just crushed an oil pan. I gotta go see what happened. Anyways, we're gonna be working Louis ViTen. Oh man. Yep, it's time to work on Louis ViTen. I got a whole bunch of work to do. Hopefully this thing's fine. I'm sure it is. These oil pickup tubes and oil pans are really resistant. So I've heard. Dang it, can't have nothing nice. That's top secret under there. That might be going in there. Where's my air blower? Where'd my air blower go? There it is. All right, before I get too busy on the Ford, I got a special guest coming today. Got Andrew Miller from ArcDroid showing up, and he's gonna kind of give me the 1-2 on how to use that ArcDroid plasma table that I got from him, so I gotta go clean it up. I haven't been using it a whole lot. Hang on, I'm turning my air compressor on. I've been trying to clean up the shop a little bit. It was still a disaster after the trip down, well, the whole build on the Mustang too. So I've been messing with the shop a bunch, cleaning, and I gotta get this ArcDroid looking good. Check it out. I got Andrew here from ArcDroid, and he is helping set the rig up.
You can blame all of this on me. It's my fault. Yeah, so we're just going to update his software a little bit for him, get him some new features, some functions that weren't in the original setup, so he'll actually be able to do patterns and things like that now, and it'll actually run a little faster and a little bit bigger. So
sweet. I have only cut those like end cap circles on this thing using the, what do you call this? The
Simple Trace. This is our Simple Trace interface. So basically it allows you to do things manually without a computer.
So I used that once. I cut a circle, and it was like the greatest day of my life. And then my buddy Josh came out here, and he brought his computer and was using SolidWorks, and that's how we built those parts that are on the rear suspension of Louis ViTen. So I'm hoping that today I can learn how to use the Simple Trace and make shock mounts for the Mazda. And I've got a whole bunch of other little projects like airbag cups. I've always wanted to be able to make airbag mounts without having to use an 1 1/8 unibit to drill a hole for the bag fitting.
By the time I leave here, dude, you're going to be an expert.
All right. I'm going to learn something today. Sweet. Look at that camera work. Dig it.
All right. There we go.
Piece of cake, right?
Yeah, and it's gotten much better now. Much better now.
All right, we had a bunch of little settings to tweak, but it seems like we're getting it dialed in, which is good. These are the reasons why it's good to have the Pro in the house. Check that out. This is one of the things that I've really been wanting to use the ArcDroid for, and it's like coilover tabs or shock mount tabs or 4-link tabs. I'm going to crawl under here, and we can kind of look and see what I built the first time. Ugh. Yeah, you can appreciate this. I built all this junk by hand.
Of course you did.
And I'm going to put a different rear end in because this one's absolute garbage. But what I was like sweating was redoing all the tabs. So the goal here is to like create some new tabs with less energy than I did the last ones. The new axle is going to have a bigger tube, so it should be a 2 3/4 tube.
Writing this down?
I am. I think you have my Sharpie.
2 3/4 tube.
2 3/4 tube. I want the whole 2-inch off of the tube, and other than that, it doesn't need to be anything special. Like the radius on the other end can be fine. So if we're doing a tab that's like 2 3/4 wide with a 2 3/4 radius
and a 2-inch offset.
And a 2-inch offset.
Perfect.
You can make those?
Easy peasy.
Let's go 2 1/8 on the offset.
Oh, God. But you wanted to go 2 3/4 wide.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you wanted a radius on one end.
Yep.
Right? And you want a 2 1/8 offset between the pipe
and the hole for the...
in the center of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it should come down, so it should look like this if you ignore my really bad artistry.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do is we're going to double up. We're going to make it twice as long.
Okay.
So we're going to create a slot.
Gotcha.
And we're going to cut holes in either end of the slot.
And then we're going to cut
And then we're just going to cut a 2 3/4 inch circle out of the center.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll drop out as 2 separate shock tabs that'll be exactly the same.
Perfect.
So it's much better piercing.
Yeah. Now, can I alter these for like a onesie-twosie thing, but not save it?
Yeah, for sure. You just hit exit and go back out and.
Mm-hmm. Like if I needed to change that radius to a 3-inch radius on one of them.
Yep. Not a problem.
Basically, just change it to a 3-inch first hole.
Yep.
And then it'll just kind of overlap it as it cuts by it.
Yep.
On the 2 3/4 on the outside radiuses.
Exactly. It'll just kind of cut off the edge.
Okay.
Ta-da! You'll look and see here at how close we got to getting the kerf right. We did 0.55, right? Which is just under 9/16. So
yeah.
a 9/16 is 5/625. We are just under 9/16. So
cool.
The kerf, my guess at the kerf was really, really close.
Cool.
So if you clean that up with a grinder before you run it through the drill, I bet you that 9/16 drill will just drop through there like butter.
I don't have to clamp them together and grind them together and drill them together and cool. This table, this is also something that like I've seen a bunch of guys using tables like this from Harbor Freight, and then I think this one
is an Eastwood one,
this
right?
is from Eastwood. It's pretty good.
Northern Tool makes one.
Yeah.
By Clutch, I think is the brand name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all just sort of a perfect little size. You just got to kind of put a mount out the back for the arc droid.
Yep, that was the first arc droid project, was actually making that mount, and that was Josh made that, which was cool. Like it's all together. It has a really small footprint. If I were to,
wheels.
Yeah, if I had wheels on it and actually had a plasma cutter mounted to it, it'd be way convenient. So, right on. I think we're on the right track. We made tabs for some link brackets. Have an opportunity to make some frame side tabs. Andrew's got to go visit the big dogs up at Grind Hard and Matt's Offroad Recovery. And where else?
Cab Rats.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm on a whirlwind tour.
Yep. He's hitting all the western states. All right. Thanks for your help. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Right on. All right. I got to get back to working on Louis Vuitton. Hopefully, if I have to make some tabs or brackets to get this thing down to the Sema Show, I can now use that machine. If not, I will definitely be using it in order to get a different rear axle in the Mustard. All right. I got to get busy. One of the things I did want to do on this was put a set of the regular DOT Milestar Patagonias on it, but I wasn't able to get those in time. So we are going to drive it down to Las Vegas on these stickies or this black label compound. Probably not ideal, but I feel like if I get the alignment kind of sorted out and I rotate the spare in and I balance these, then we probably are fine. So it's going to be a long drive, but these should be all right. If the alignment's not totally out of whack, then I won't shred them. And steering is one of the things on the list to do. The big things I want to do on the rear is I've got to set a different set of coilovers, because if you look on this one over here, you'll see I really bent the ear on this one. It's kind of hard to see because my light's garbage, but that coilover end is bent pretty bad and I don't want that thing to break. Basically, that was caused because I allowed the arm to move more than the shock was capable of. So I need to do some wobble stoppers in here to eliminate a little bit of movement out of the arm, and then I'll put that other coilover on, and that'll get me back to where the coilover should be. This was kind of a temporary deal and it didn't work out super great. The rear gear set, we're going to tear into that immediately. Basically, I was having noise coming from the setup on the gears right out of the gate. So we'll fix that. You can see here there's a bunch of damage to the rock slider. It's just all bent and beat up, but I'm going to leave that how it is for the show. We might come back and like address those later on. I really kind of beat this thing up pretty good. I built like a quick temporary transmission cross member before the trip. That may end up getting swapped for something more permanent. And yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it really didn't take too big of a beating. It's still in decent shape. It's just definitely not fresh and new anymore. Look at that rocker. It's just all mashed up in there. Whatever. All right. Let's get the diff cover off of this and drive shaft out and start figuring out these gears. I had picked this thing up from getting the gears done, and the guy said that it was a noisy setup. And I just kind of was like, yeah, maybe it is. I've never done a 10.5 Sterling rear end. But it really just sounded like it was eating the bearings up. When I was on the trip, I drained the oil on it at least once. So this only has probably 400 miles on it. Look at the amount of metal on there. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a ton of actual metal shavings on the magnetic diff plug. So this rear end was just sort of disintegrating the whole week as I was wheeling on it. I really didn't think it was going to make it through the week. I had a set of gears and an install kit shipped like overnight to one of the hotels, and I carried them with me just in case I needed to do a new gear set on this on the trip, but it survived the whole week. It just wasn't very happy about it. When I pop these covers off, I always basically loosen almost all of them, pop it to where it can drain out. I always leave like the top 1 or 2 bolts in so the diff cover can hang there and everything can drain out without the cover coming off and creating just a giant mess right out of the gate. All right, let's get that out of the way. Dang. Wonder what's going on in here. So far it looks nice. I guess it's official. I guess winter showed up. Cool. Enough about that. It's time to get back to work on this thing. Let's find out why this rear axle was making so much noise. Let's start by pulling these shafts out, and then we will start yanking all this stuff apart. See if we can find a bad bearing or something. All right, get busy. It's get busy time. I'm getting into this, and I think I may have already found what the problem is. This bearing, if you put a finger on it, if you look at it, it's got some like heat marks on it. You put a finger on it and it definitely has like a rough edge to it, and that's just the bearing race. I'm kind of feeling like when we get this apart, the bearing is going to have ground into that race really bad. The other thing I'm not super stoked on is the way that this copper tube is run. Typically, if you do an air locker in one of these, you run the copper tube and you like loop it over and you get it to come out sort of far away from this. This is the collar that the air goes into, and then it like locks the locker. The copper tube, it just goes from like here to here, which is really short. There's really not much room for error. And it seems like if it was to loop over here, you can like move this down and like move this all around with a little more ease. Now that this is so short, it's just like jammed in there. I've got to come up with a solution for that, and hopefully it's not having to buy a whole new collar and then loop the copper line, but to me it seems like that's really what's going to have to happen. Definitely need more slack on stuff than that. All right, let's get this carrier out of here, see what's up with the bearings. All right, there we go. Going to the ground with it. Oh my gosh, that's heavy. Oh, all right. How's that feel? Pinion bearing feels good. I don't see anything weird there. I don't see any teeth ground up. Now we go over here and we got the bearings off on that side. That feels super crunchy. That doesn't feel good at all. I'm definitely gonna have to get a new one of these seal housings. Just pulling that out, I had to kink that copper line over, so that thing's junk. I'm back in the shop. It's time to get this sorted out. Luckily, I ran over to my buddy Matt's house, and he actually had another one of these seal housings for the same. He's running the same differential in that green Ford that he's got. So I got myself a good new seal housing. I can start figuring that out. I also have a full install kit and a ring and pinion for that, the 10.5 in the back of the truck. So rather than messing around, I know these gears don't look bad, but they've been riding in there with a bunch of metal floating around, and I really kind of need to just get in and just change everything out. So I'm gonna pull the bearings off of here. I'll inspect those. They're gonna be trashed, I'm sure. So I'll get those swapped out. I'll swap the ring gear out. Then we'll go over there. We'll pull the pinion out and swap the pinion out for the new one. Hopefully this all kind of goes together without having a whole bunch of in and out, like trying to reset everything. But I fully expect it's gonna take all day. So I'm not doing a full-blown like how to set up gear install video on this. I'm just gonna kind of slam this together and get on to the next project. Look at that. I've got it all dialed in. That was so much dang work, but we're good to go now. I've got the right amount of backlash. I've got good preload on all the bearings. Got a decent pattern on the gear set. I'm gonna call that a win. Now it's just time to do some RTV or the right stuff, because this stuff is awesome. I'll put the diff cover back on, we'll button that up and call that good. We'll throw the axles in it tonight, and then tomorrow, I'm either gonna just throw this back on the ground and go drive it, or we'll start working on something else. We'll see, but it's late and it's Friday night. I'm gonna button that up, get the axles in, let the right stuff dry, and we will put gear oil in it in the morning. Good, this is good. It took way too long, but look at that. There's gears in there, and hopefully they don't make as much noise as the last ones did. Saturday morning in the Dirthead Shed. Check it out. I just dropped the UA video, the second one, and it's doing good. Thank you guys for watching and liking and doing all that stuff. I think what I'm gonna do right now is slam the wheels and tires back on this and put some gear oil in it and go test drive it. I've got like 3 days before I actually have to leave for the trip, but I really want to make sure the gears are good to go. The gears are the one thing that'll stop me from getting there. So it's probably time to go ahead and give this thing a test drive and make sure what I did is okay. All right, we're on some back roads. Immediate impressions are good. It's definitely not making the bearing growl that it was making before. It had some bad crunching and grinding going on. So I do have a little bit of a whine going on that I don't know if that's in the transfer case or what, but I feel like we totally made leaps and bounds of improvement. So I'm gonna put some more miles on this and let those bearings heat up and cool off and heat up and cool off. The procedure on break-in on gears is basically like you want to drive it like and get them up to temp, do about 25 miles on your first run, and then let them cool all the way down. So I'll probably go and I'll drive like 12 miles up, 12 miles back, let it cool down. Then before I head for Vegas, I'll probably do another one where I go like 50 miles and let it heat all the way up, cool all the way down. So you want to do that about 3 times, and then your gears are kind of ready for a long road trip. So that's why I pulled it out of the shop early and wanted to get this process started so I'm not like down to the wire just jumping in it and going to Vegas. I did my first test drive up here to my buddy Jim's house, about 30 miles or so, and definitely got some heat in this rear end. It's hot to the touch. The pinion, that's definitely hot. But we're breaking in gears and we're breaking in bearings, so I'm gonna let this cool all the way down. Probably hang out here for about 45 minutes and then drive it home and let it heat up and cool down again. You want to do that cycle like 3 or 4 times, so this should be a good day for it. I'm kind of getting behind on some of the other projects that I want to do on it, but I really feel like that needs to be done right. So all good so far. I can go hang out for a few, look at old junk. All right, back in the shop. Let's see how warm this thing is. All right, I would say that was a pretty successful first drive on the gear set. And I guess we'll work on something else for a little bit. Maybe I'll do something simple, like try to fix this fender flare. We're back in the shop on Monday morning. It's actually probably 11 o'clock right now. I've got a ton to do. I got the gears done. That took way longer than I expected. I ended up having to put all 4 new fender flares on it because the other ones were textured and these ones are smooth, so I had to swap fronts as well. Those are looking pretty good. The goals today are going to be getting the coilover swapped out. I got a different set of Kings from AccuTune this time, and they should be a little more dialed in for the rear suspension on this. We'll dig into that as I get them installed. And then I also need to address this bent steering. The tie rod is totally jacked on this thing, and we are going to figure out how to have a little better tie rod and drag link. So we got a day and a half to get this thing done, and then I'm hitting the road. All right, here's the deal on the rear shocks. These were off of the front of an old Sema Show truck, and they actually are for the front of a Toyota Tundra. So they have this tall ear and spacer on the bottom of them so that the Toyota front axle shaft would ride next to this. All of that is fine and dandy, but you end up losing a bunch of travel. This is a 7.5-inch travel shock that's like the same length as a normal 12-inch travel shock would be. So I have room to put a longer travel shock than this in here. The other thing that happened was on the trip, you can see that I bent this lower ear pretty badly. This is just aluminum, and if you look in here real close, you can see that it has a bunch of stress marks in the anodizing. So that thing has definitely been bent farther than it should be, and it's probably not very strong. So we're gonna swap these out. It's gonna be a little bit of work because these use a giant 5/8 bolt in the bottom, and the new shocks use a 1/2" bolt. So I've got some tricks on how to fix all that. This thing's trying. There we go. All right, shock out of there. Check this out. This is a repair weld washer from Rough Stuff Specialties. This is designed to fix a wallowed out hole, or in this case, I can step it back down to a 1/2" size. I have a 5/8 hole in here right now, and I will drill it out to 3/4. This will push in, and then I'll weld these things in place. So I'll end up with a 1/2" hole for those new shocks, which is cool. And it'll have a little bit wider surface for the bolt to ride on, so it shouldn't wallow out in the future very easily. It's been a couple hours. I had dinner, I had a couple of big meetings with some cool news that's coming up soon. I'll let you know about later. But first, we gotta finish drilling out and welding up on these link bars. So I'm way behind. That's no joke. I'm like trying to leave tomorrow. I'm trying to leave for Sema tomorrow at like noon, and I haven't even finished these shock mounts. I haven't messed with the steering. We have a lot to do. All right, let's knock some stuff out. Where's my WD? Ugh. Unibit, or whatever you want to call it, step drill bit. These ones are from Harbor Freight. I use them for everything. I need this to go to 3/4, and this unibit goes up to 3/4. When these things are new, they are amazing. We got the holes drilled out to 3/4, so that's all good to go. Now I'm gonna clean up the burrs on the inside. That's good. Now we're gonna sand the outside and get rid of the paint so we can weld. The cleaner you get this, the better it's gonna weld, so take a little more time than you think you need. Those will go like that. Look at that. So they fit in there pretty tight. I've got this long bolt, we'll run through there. And then a spacer. We'll get that tightened up. All right, we're good to go. I've got the TIG welder over there all set up. We'll go ahead and buzz this thing on with that. And I just want to TIG weld this because I want the bead right here to look cool and small instead of being some big bulky MIG welding bead. I like TIG welding. I just need to practice more. I don't think I've ever been in a comfortable position when I got to TIG weld. Seems like I'm always under a car on my back using the foot pedal between my knees or something crazy. Bust out this outer one. That's done, welded on, went from 5/8 back down to 1/2", and it's all good to go. Let's put all this junk away, and then we'll move on to cutting the floor and getting those shocks in place. Who's ready for some nerd talk? Nerd talk. We're getting these coilovers installed, and it's pretty cool. I'm going from That other, it was a King shock. It was a good shock, but it was running a single coil on it. Whereas these ones are running 2 coils. I'm running a 500-pound lower and a 400-pound upper. That's a dual rate spring setup. So I've got a dual rate slider in the middle. When it's all together, I'm riding on like, I don't know how the math works out, but I think it's like 340-pound springs. And then when I compress it and I adjust this dual rate stopper to where it really needs to ride, I'll be able to firm up that last little bit of travel. So it's like I'll ride at ride height on like normal soft spring, and then when I go to compress that last couple inches, I'll have that dual rate stopper come down and it'll hit this nylon stop here, and that'll put it to where I'm just riding on that 500-pound coil. So it'll really ramp up the spring rate right at the last minute, and that should stop me from bottoming out all the time or blowing through my travel like I was doing before. I moved those little shock tab reservoir mount things, and I think we are about buttoned on these. All right, shocks are in. I'll have to like set the preload and the dual rate stops, but I kind of need to get it on the ground to do that. I think what I'm gonna do is go test drive it. It is actually Tuesday morning now and I need to be on the road today. So I kind of feel like it's time to button the back end of this thing up, go put some more miles on it, make sure the gear set's all good, because that's the biggest concern on the truck right now. Then I'll bring it back and we'll figure out how to straighten the tie rod or build the crossover steering or whatever we're gonna do. So let's get the wheels and tires on this thing and go drive it. Please start. This thing's been killing batteries lately. Ah. Alright. Started, that's good. Let's get the battery charger off. The switch died on my battery charger years ago, so once it's plugged in, it's on. So I've always got to make sure that I unplug it before I pull the cables. All right. We'll drive this thing. All right, I'm back from my test drive. I am not super jazzed. I still have a bunch of noise out of some gears. I don't know if it's bearings or gears or my setup. I also can't tell if maybe it's coming out of the transfer case because this thing is all solid mounted. Tires I balanced the other day and they're still hopping at like 60, so that's kind of frustrating. But I gotta go. I gotta get this thing done. I stopped at O'Reilly and I picked up a tie rod end, and we're gonna just try and slam in a tie rod end, get rid of the one that's really bent under there, set the toe, set the steering wheel, and hit the road. This was a new one on the trip, and it's got a whole bunch of an extra bend on the end of it compared to this one. This part all here is the same, but right here in the threads, this one just has a giant bend in it. Throw some anti-seize on everything. Anti-seize on everything. We're gonna set the toe on this. Basically, toe is if your wheels are pointing apart from each other, that's toed out, or if they're pointing towards each other, that's toed in. So I'm gonna take a tape measure down there, find a similar spot on the tire tread pattern, and I'll check, and I'll probably set this thing right about 0, maybe an 1/8 inch of toe in, and then we'll see how it drives. But 1/8 inch to 3/16 toe in is typically standard. All right, I got it to where I have about an 1/8 inch of toe in. I'm gonna lock this thing down and hope that it stays put. should be good to go. Let's get the steering wheel centered now. Finally on the road. That was a lot of work. We got the toe and the steering wheel centered. That part's much better. Check this out. The thing was like 90 degrees off. So good to go on that. It is getting dark out and I'm about to take off into the mountains of Idaho and Montana. It's the next day. Check out this awesome little motel that I stayed at last night. I'm in Melrose, Montana at this place called the Sportsman Lodge. No fancy hotel here, but check this out. Look at that view. Holy cow. This is somewhere south, about 30 miles south of Butte, Montana. It's absolutely amazing. Cool little motel. I think Freiberger and Rick Payway would be proud. All right, there's Louis Vuitton. It's time to get this thing fired up. I've got, shoot, I don't know. I've got about an 11-hour drive still today, so I got to get busy. Might as well do a little cold start video while we're here, because it's cold out. Come on, Louie. This thing sounds so cool when it starts up, and then it calms down a little bit. Pretty stoked to just have this thing out of the shop and on the road again. Sitting a little low in the back. I've got some fine tuning to do on the shocks, but we'll get it all sorted out. All right, let that heater kick for a minute. It is cold. I'm gonna go pack up my computer. I was trying to edit a little bit from my next video I'm gonna have coming out, which is for linking the Mustang. All right. Pack this up and get out of here. Yeah, Montana is cool. Every time I come here, I'm like, why don't I just take back roads everywhere in Montana? All right, back to the interstate, and I gotta roll this window up because it is freezing out here. This is life of having a standard cab. All my junk's in here, but that's all right. I'm driving by myself, so whatevs. Check this out though. How is that for some cool views? Montana is awesome. Quick update from the road. I have driven all day. The sun's about to go down. I am in Utah, sort of southern Utah now, so I think I have about 300 miles to go. It looks like we got some guys in a red bump side Ford coming up here. Check this thing out. Oh, crew cab. Dang. That's awesome. I wonder if they're going to the Sema Show too, or if they're just out doing other rad stuff. Oh, check this out. Rad Super Duty. Flat gray paint or wrap. Dang, all sorts of cool trucks on the road. 303 miles to go still. I'm doing it. I'm trying to get it all the way down. There's a 1,200 mile trip from my house down to Las Vegas, Nevada. So it's a long haul. The truck is it's getting me there, but it's frustrating. The rear end is like howling like crazy. The tires are hopping like crazy, but we're making miles. I'm getting it down there. I think that's it for this Dirthead Shed though. It's about to get dark and I got work to do tomorrow morning. So we will see you all next time. Hope you enjoyed this one.